First of all, a big thank you for all of you who have come here on a Monday morning. Today is a very special day because mostly we have a lot related to business in CII, and this time we have something a little different from our usual talk. We have a topic today for leadership confluence, a blend of mind and heart in driving performance. And this is something I think is very important for all of us, being human beings, to find the right balance. I think that is where we all have our challenges, be it balance in terms of work life or good, bad, how far is good in business, how much is okay for a very conscience-full business. I would say, I think I'll leave the rest to our speaker today, who's supposed to be the corporate sage, as he's friendly known to others. I'll start with a quick introduction of our speaker today, and then we'll hear from him. We have our speaker today is Mr. Prakash Seshadri, founder and CEO of Change Consulting. He is a much accomplished person in the academic, professional, management and spiritual dimensions. He is a strategic thinker, a heartful leader, and has done extensive work in the areas of nation building. His revolutionary work, well known as Glorious India, published in March 2014, speaks a lot of his visionary acumen. He is a gold medalist in his grades, postgraduate in commerce from the University of Madras, and holds several professional diplomas in the areas like marketing, computer science, sales, Six Sigma, NLP and the like. On the professional front, he is well-known motivational speaker and is an author, having to his credit several best-selling books like Future-Proof Your Business, Life Skills 101, Peaceful Parenting and The Spiritual CEO. In his 13th and the recent book, Dharma Tales for CEOs, is published and is already hitting the top of the charts and is becoming the bestseller in its category. He has thousands of leadership and self-development based articles to his credit, and he has coined more than 1,500 original quotations as well. You can follow him on Instagram or social media at CxOs. Beyond all this, Mr. Prakash is an avid meditator and practices heartfulness meditation since 1992. He spends a lot of time propagating the benefits of heartfulness meditation and is the secretary to the Global Teacher cum Guide of the Heartfulness Movement. Heartfulness Institute is a voluntary organization working towards helping people balance their internal and external lives through the process of heart-based meditation. He is also the regional facilitator for the Heartfulness Institute initiatives in Tamil Nadu, and he guides and leads a team of 2,000 plus heartful trainers and thousands of volunteers in taking the message of heartfulness across the cross-spectrum of speakers. He also helps people in finding the true purpose of their life and facilitates them in finding the right balance between the two wings of life, which is material and spiritual. He blends well across wide social spectrum and has an uncanny ability to connect to audiences from across ethnicities and age groups. Let us welcome him warmly, and the stage is yours, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Many years ago, there was a very highly paid speaker like me who was addressing a very august audience like this. And his dates are not very easy to get. And finally they manage to pay what he wants and gets his date. He comes and talks, and then the audience is there. And then he asks them a question. You all have come all the way to listen to what I am saying. Do you know what I am going to speak about? The audience said, obviously we don't know. So he said there's no point in speaking to people who don't know what I am speaking about, and then he gets off the stage and goes off. So these people get sort of peeved off and they say we have to get him back again and make him speak. They again find another spot, pay him the fees, get him again. This time he comes, now they are very, very prepared, smart people like you. He comes, looks at them and says, do you know what I am going to speak about? They said, we all know what you are going to speak about. He said, your jar is already full, there is no point in me speaking about, and then he goes off. And now they said, we have to really fix him. So they form a strategy, like exactly how we are sitting. There are people on this side, there are people on this side. He is called and he comes. These people are very prepared, smarter people than the earlier two outings. He comes again, he wishes them and asks, do you know what I am going to speak about? So half of them have already practiced everything. So the people on the right side, we know what we are going to speak about, and people on the left side, we don't know what you're going to speak about. He said, then those who know on the right, who know what we're going to speak about, please tell the people on the left what I'm going to speak about, and then he gets off the stage. So now the question to you, do you know what I'm going to speak about? No answers. Very, very safe. Okay, let me start with something which I have read, which many of you might be aware, which is a bit mythological in nature. If you know the confluence of rivers, specifically what comes together in the place called Prayagraj, also nearby Allahabad, there is supposed to be two rivers which come together on the surface, Ganges and Yamuna. And then there is supposed to be this mystical river which flows further down the river, further down the ground, and then it's supposed to join in near Allahabad, and then they all come together. It is also said that this mystical river Saraswati continues to flow as the river bed on which actually Ganges flows. And without the support of this river Saraswati, the river Ganges will not be able to sustain what it is doing. Let me flip it back a bit and go back to 1910s and 20s, when the concept of the third and fourth industrial revolution was coming into the world. The world started seeing a lot of economic upswing. And of course, in between, the World War II hit us badly. And then what happened is there was sort of a tailspin, downspin there, and countries like Japan went down. So many countries started rebuilding all over again. And then the economic momentum really picked up globally. And then around 1970s, a lot of research started happening. It culminated in a person called Daniel Friedman. I don't know how many of you are aware of him. He published a very famous paper in September 1970. He very clearly postulates a concept which somehow has become, fortunately or unfortunately, the riverbed on which the businesses currently run. He made this famous statement that the purpose of business is to make profit. That's all. The entire research paper that's published, which is available in the net that you can search, is all about finally just saying the purpose of business is to generate profit. Which also meant everything else, the customers, the internal stakeholders or employees or those days called as subordinates, became the means to the end that the business owners wanted to generate out of it. Everything was justified. As they say, love and war, everything is justified, and so goes the same thing for business as well. So everything is justified as long as I have come through that cycle where I know what it means to have worked in the late 70s or early 80s. These days, the next generation complains about, specifically after the Infosys co-chairman or the former chairman, he made out that statement of a 70-hour week being the minimum norm. Those days there were no questions asked. 14 hours was default given. There were no questions asked. You don't even think of negotiating. Can I work something shorter than that? You turn up at 7, 8 in the morning. When you go home, God only knows. And nobody complained because Those days were the time when economy was growing in India, though it was already growing in other parts of the world. And slowly it happened that it had gone into the psyche that hard work was always given priority over smart work. Toward the mid-90s, slowly a lot of research internationally started happening. And many organizations started hiring consultants, including people like us, to find out, are we on the right track? Is it what we are supposed to be doing? Is this good for us? Are we milking these cows too much where the cows don't even know how to talk and it's going to die a death which is not even aware, being taken to the slaughterhouse? And then the concept of the triple P came up then. Many of you are familiar with the concept of triple P. For those who are not familiar with the acronym, it stands for a triangulated concept of people, profit, and planet. In the late 90s, internationally, many top organizations globally started doing business only with those who were able to justify that they give equal importance to the other two P's as the profit. Earlier, organizations were weighed only with the P&L, the balance sheet, the numbers, the churn, the PATs, the turnover, the year-on-year growth, and things like that. Even today it's relevant in many parts of India. They very clearly started auditing organizations to check whether what is this 3P? Just to go back to the basics of it. Profit is something all of us know. As Daniel Friedman defined, the purpose of the business is to make profit. Which means I am liable, I am accountable to the people who invest, whether it is borrowed from a fraternity, being in a partnership firm or as a sole proprietorship firm, or I have started tapping the capital market the way Reliance and all that did the late 70s, 80s and 90s, which showed us the big boom then, the Mehtas and all the scandals. Then people started realizing that profit is not the only thing, and then they started focusing on other 2P, which meant that the people who generate this profit to us are equally to be taken care while I improve or keep chasing new businesses. The concept of giving equal priority. When I said triangulated, imagine an equilateral triangle where all three sides being equal. You want to give equal importance not just by mouth but by practice. Till about 80s, the department called HR did not exist in many organizations. If at all you had one labor officer. I have interacted with many of them, including Coimbatore. And their only job was to ensure that the relevant industrial acts and all that Factories Act and stuff like that are taken care of. Nothing more, nothing less. The concept of setting goals, the concept of appraisals, the concept of performance conversations, the concept of performance management systems, carries and KPIs did not even exist. Slowly, then it became a personnel department. The labor officers started getting grouped as personnel department. Even there, the only job was to find that we tick the right boxes so that we don't come under the radar of the government, who are always looking at finding faults with the organizations to see how they can be fixed. Later, as the evolution started coming in, thanks to many of the B schools, specifically organizations, schools like XLR, Jamshedpur, the concept of humans in the evolution of business started actually expanding, expounding. Slowly it started coming out. People started seeing the others in the business as a source of growth other than just a source of labor. 99% of the time, people who joined an organization were hired what we call as warm bodies for the time that they spent. And hence, then slowly when it started evolving, they started finding out that the combined might of the knowledge and the resources that you have in the organization can be better tapped if you let them space and allow them a little bit of space for them to. Many of the old general managers of many of the top organizations in India who continue to be in touch with you, those days they used to say that rope in the cow to such an extent, it's not free, but it thinks it's free. Give them that space that they think they are free, but don't give them too long, otherwise they will break away and go. People are given the space as long as they did not cross the LOC. People started contributing. Many organizations started seeing that people, when actually enabled, when people are given that support and the acknowledgement that yes, we do value your presence, please contribute, they started coming out. Many top organizations those days like HLL or Tatas and Birlas had programs introduced like Kaizen for employees. Any new idea was appreciated. Any new idea which got monetized, a portion of incentive was given back to these people. Slowly the momentum started coming up. The second P started gaining a bit of attraction, not in the real sense it should, which I will come to towards the second half of my session. The third one started taking credence maybe 5-10 years ago. Even now it's still not accepted. If you travel to any outskirts of any large city, even now you will find people happily dumping whatever they can lay their hands on, wherever field is available, whatever waterway is available, and then they go away. Last week I was driving late back home in the night in Chennai, back home. Right next to my house, I found a person who had just ferried some sewage 3 blocks away, letting out right in front of us in another block there. I just casually asked him, what are you doing? He said, this is how things work. On paper, we are all supposed to be green, clean, but this is how things work. Which meant, just to share you a very interesting anecdote, 20 years back when the concept of the planet as part of the Triple P came in Britain they introduced a very interesting law. They said that people who are in the upstream of a river, they are given water for consumption by capturing the water 3 kilometers downstream. That's taken and trapped and given back to them. Simple logic. Water comes 3 kilometers down, in all probability you have let it from your place. You want to just capture and give it back, you decide what you want. You let out toxic stuff. The toxic stuff is going to come back to you. Then there was a boom in industry, specifically in Tirupur and Coimbatore, on large organizations coming up on STPs and all that, which has become the norm today. But even now that's done, unfortunately, at least in the mid-developed countries or the developing countries, or whatever you want to bucket India as. Still it's almost given a lip service. Not necessarily everyone does it, but predominantly. We complain norms to the extent that we have to, as long as our borders are safe. How it is treated outside the border, I don't care. You would have seen the episodes in Kerala when Coca-Cola had a bottling plant shut down because the local team of villagers went and said, you are tapping our water, selling to all people all over India under your brand, but our batteries, water is going off. Recently I was traveling from Marthandam to Kanyakumari, and I heard a story from one of the contractors, road contractor, which said the road which is connecting Nagarkoil to Marthandam, which is supposed to be a bypass to the current road which is taking quite long, has been kept in abeyance for almost 6 years because of the people's movement which said you are tapping into water bodies, please don't do so. In Chennai, where I live, in 1970, there are 800 water bodies. Today, Chennai has less than 12 water bodies. And there is one person who has converted it into a business opportunity. He does a full day session by taking you into a car or a bus on a prepaid basis. He takes you and shows you all the place, sir, what you are seeing here, this building, this person, this thing, this was a water body, then and shows you a photo. Just a way of generating business, but at least brings you into conscience, what is that we are giving it back. Imagine 40-50 years from now, the earth that is going to be owned and used by the people who are going to be our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. In the name of profit, what are we leaving behind? Is a question, is what is the fulcrum or which forms the basis of the concept of planet. Many international organizations, they have today 2 balance sheets. The one official balance sheet either by GAAP standards or the Indian accounting standards or the Commonwealth accounting standards. It is the typical balance sheet which has your P&L numbers and your balance sheet numbers of assets and liabilities and all that. The other balance sheet they start maintaining is the split between the three P's and how we are being accountable to the business, how we are being accountable to the people who are part of the business. You take the entire building in which you are right now sitting and talking, take all the people out in the evening when they go home. It is nothing but a dead shell. It is given life because you are present, I am present, people are present. If I don't really care for them, would it matter? So 1/3 of the balance sheet that's being presented. I have myself seen several balance sheets where they have even a HR balance sheet. The real value of our people. Do we really value? How do we actually convert this value into a benefit which will benefit both the business and the people who are running this business for us? And then the third, in terms of the impact that you are making on the ecosystem in which you are living. What right do we have? Many of the things that we are complaining today, for example, we are saying that the earth has become warmer, seasons have started changing. Chennai has seen rain in July 3x of that it has never seen in the last 80 years in the month of July. And when you ask people who understand a bit of this concept, they say it's all because of a simple word, global warming. Simple. Everything is brushed under that one single carpet, whatever it means. This is because of the mistakes that the people 30, 40, 60 years back did. Are we going to carry that back into the future? And this is where the combination of the confluence of the mind and the heart that I'm going to talk about, and the concept of the river Saraswati that I said, which becomes the base on which, fortunately, unfortunately, today what has happened, the river bed on which Ganges is running is also based on mind. What does mind play as a role in business? How do we run business? How should we be running businesses? What is the ideal way to run business? Is purpose better than profit? Is profit better than purpose? Is there an answer that we have for certainty? The answers are there. It is up to you whether you are ready to accept, swallow the pill, go on, or continue to fake ignorance that the cat thinks that it closes the eye and the world around me is dark. It's up to you to decide. Whoever is listening today or later, whichever part I'm going to speak about, the same thing again. It is when the heart and the mind comes in a confluence is when there is a perfect blend the way Ganges runs on the riverbed called Saraswati. The riverbed Saraswati is never seen outside. The way in which heart-based organizations run, heartful leadership as we call in our Heartfulness Institute, does it make serious sense? Many times when I speak to business people, at least in round one, top level owners, I do a lot of consulting work, I do coaching work, I do family business advisory work for very large listed organizations, right up to smaller organizations as well. In round one, round two, round three, the standard question is, Prakash, does it make sense to us? I am answerable to the investors, I am answerable to the board, I am answerable to the stock market, who are on a day-to-day basis evaluating me what I am. It takes a bit of a time and lot of POC or proof of concept before they realize, yes, it is possible to mix purpose and profit and make it a perfect blend of a marriage. 40 years back, if I am not sounding against any specific gender, 40 years back it was a given that the men worked and the women stayed at home. It was normal, it was a given. But today things have changed. The first question the girl asks the boy when she wants to get married is, two things at least ask. The second is humorous. The first one I'll ask it in a serious, say it in a serious way. I will continue to pursue my passion or profession. If you have any objections, right now let's resolve it. The second question, humorous, is the girl asks the boy, do you know how to cook? Things have changed a bit. Of course, the girls also get smarter. The boy says, both of us will use Swiggy. What's your problem? It's always there. All the hypermart, Zeptos and Swiggies, 10 minutes, you just press a button, order, it's at your home. And you don't even have to worry about paying. It all gets added to your credit card and EMIs, God knows what. If you really look at this blend between purpose and profit, it depends on how you look at business. Let me give you a business model which is mind-based first, purely mind-based. And then I link the heart and then show how both can coexist. When you look at any business, for example, how do we construct a business? There are two kinds of businesses that we always face day in and day out in our consulting life. The first business is flourishing well, they want to grow. The second business, irrespective of the size, is they are apparently in doldrums, ready for NCLT, but they still want to be there. When I traveled to Coimbatore 40 years back first, many of the industries I have seen today don't exist. Malls and theatres have taken over those land. Some of them are very big names. Same is true in Madurai. The same is true in down south. The same is true when I travel in north. What happened is because somewhere they did not maybe use the faculty which is God given to us, which is the mind, to the best of its effect, to see how we can manufacture something which will ensure that I continuously grow. Whether I am growing, do I want to leapfrog and do something like a pole vault? Or if I am in a problem, how do I reconstruct and then get out and start doing well? In both these businesses, the approach I give is something similar to this. If it makes sense, you can make no. We always start with, I'm not sounding theoretical, I have done thousands of projects with organizations to showcase that yes, this is how it can work. But though this is not the only model that needs to work. I have developed over a period of last 40 years several business models. And one of the business models which works well is based on what I'm going to share right now. The first is what we call as setting up a vision. A vision typically is something that you have based on what length you want to foresee. Can be 3 to 5 years, can be 10 years, can be 30 years, and I have also worked with one or two exceptional leaders in India who have had vision for the next 100 years for their businesses. Very interesting. I don't want to name who they are. It doesn't make right now. It's not information I want you to review about right now. Maybe offline we can talk, because I am recording my conversation. So these people are able to look, and I was really amazed to read one quotation which dates back to the 16th century from an apparent Red Indian leader. He shares a business wisdom, a leadership wisdom, where he says a true leader is one who is able to see the impact of his vision 7 generations ahead before implementing it. A generation typically is about 30 years, roughly 30 years. Which means before you take a decision, specifically which is vision. Vision is something that once you commit, it's like pressing a rocket. It's like heading to Mars. There's no way you can come back. It has to reach Mars or you die halfway through. So such visions, he says, look at least 7 generations ahead. At least 7 generations. This means about roughly 200 years. How many of us in this room, how many of us in Coimbatore CAI, how many pan-India can say that when I look at a vision, vision is not something that you craft every day. You don't need to. If you really look at it, let me also give you a little bit of a detail here to make it more interesting for you to go back and check it out. One single vision can keep you engaged for the next 30 to 40 years if it is made properly. Visioning is something I have done where that exercise sometimes takes between 7 to 10 days. It's not something that you sit in 5 minutes, come on, let's all finish, have a lunch meeting, let's finish our vision. That's not how visioning exercise works, not specifically for large organizations, not specifically for organizations that are looking out, branching out into a new line of business, or the next generation is taking over. Many of the family business advisory work that I do, it's about the next gen which has come back from their graduation, either from India or abroad. And they all, when I get close to them, they start addressing me as uncle. And my age goes like that, it's okay. Uncle, my dad is leaving out. Let's sit and talk. And these kids really, yesterday I was amazed that we were in a very small village called Annur, which is very close by, 30 kilometers. I was speaking to the local traders who are typically do about 5 to 25 lakhs turnover a year. That's all max. And there were 2 kids who are kids of 2 different businessmen sitting there. And toward the end, they popped up a question which was really, I mean, for me, it gave me the confidence because India still has youth which has a very, they came out saying, how do I make a startup? And then he gave some inputs. And I said, it takes about this many years. He said, no, I can't wait for so long. In 2 years, I want to do. I already have a business idea. I want to present to all these people who are present here. They don't listen to me. Will you please tell them to listen to what I'm saying? And then the kids came and presented a beautiful business concept of some IT service product, which is nice. But what I saw is they were looking at something which is a bit longer than their parents were purely looking at how much money have I made at the end of the day in the Kalla. Kalla Peti Singaram as we call it. At the end of the day, how much money have I made? So when it really came something like that, I thought, okay, wow, these kids at least are looking at something which is at least 5-10 years from now, leave alone 30, 50, 100 years from now. And when you take this vision, please bear in mind that the vision is well done and it is never too late for you to relook at your vision. In many organizations, when I walk in the reception, I see two standard words: vision statement, mission statement. I asked the receptionist, what does it mean, sir? I don't know. One consultant came, he sat for half a day, he wrote this, he told us we had to put it in all the rooms, all of us supposed to memorize, HR will keep asking questions, we just memorize, reproduce. But I'm not kidding, with the smiling faces, you know what I mean. And just below the side on the, next to the reception table, there will be another small board called quality policy. All these things normally, unfortunately, are developed by people like us, which is unfortunate because our role is not to develop, our role is to facilitate, to hold a mirror to people and say that, are you taking you and your future generation down the right track? Do you know even what a vision is? Do you know even how to make a vision statement? Is it something that somebody from Harvard or London School of Economics or some Ivy League business schools comes and tells you this is how a statement has to be made, which predominantly is a CPT or a cut and paste operation, and about half a day that's all you get? It's all there in the deep freezer. You want food? Okay, heat it up and give it. It's not fresh food. It's not made for you. It's already made long ago. And then these vision statements is what guides the organization. Leave that aside. Let's say that we revisit this drawing board and make a fresh vision statement all over again. Each vision statement, please bear in mind, can multiply into hundreds of goals. But I made one fundamental, deliberate mistake till now. Has anyone spotted it till now? I'm asking you. I have deliberately left something in between. I deliberately left it to see how the crowd responds. What did I leave? Did you spot it? Or do you want me to say what it is? Okay, sorry? Strategy comes much later.
So you left
Mission.
You left the how.
The how, or the golden circle you're talking about. The why, how, and the what. Maybe then I should have started with the why, no? Someone gave some answer, I'm not sure whether they said knowingly. The entire work starts with what defining your values. Vision comes much later because if your value as a boundary, the Saraswati is not defined, Ganges will not flow straight. The riverbed doesn't exist, the water will go everywhere. The riverbed with the banks is essential for the water to flow properly, allowing people to use the water for what it is meant for. At the same time, ensuring it doesn't endanger the lives of the people on either side of the bank, however far they live. Many businesses, when I engage with them initially, when I tell them values, Prakash, let's worry about values at the end. No? We'll say we will not overcharge, we will not cheat, we will give right product. I said that's not value. That's an outcome of a value. Offering a good product, if it is a value, it's a slap on the face of the customer. What else would a customer expect from you other than a good product? It's like saying, Ingu nalla meengal virkapadum. Anyway, good fish is only sold here. What else can I have in this market? If you understand values, and this values is what this Red Indian leader thought about 200 days ago, is my interpretation. If a value, which is the bedrock on which the future of the organization, hence the future of this country is built. Imagine if Ambanis and Adanis and all, including the Indian government, including the state government, including the local municipality, before any decision is taken, if they had a vision which was based on a set of guiding values, just for taking on a small detour, there was a book which you might want to go back and read called A Man Who Saw Tomorrow, Paul Amadeus, written way back in 1920s as a chronicle based on his journey into the future 3,800 years when he went into a coma accidentally. He comes back from the coma, writes these memoirs based on his future journey, and then he dies. Nobody takes him seriously. When he publishes, he's laughed off the podium. Come on, this is all nonsense. And 20 years later, he's an Austrian, and incidentally they find in the attic there is one small book this guy has handwritten. They take it and read. In the last 20 years, whatever he has said might happen has actually happened. He's also considered an equivalent of Nostradamus. And then he speaks about his journey into the future in that period when he was in coma, how he went, whom he saw, what kind of changes were happening. And then somewhere around 2800 AD, after much of destruction based on the avaricious tendencies of the human beings over next protracted over 700, 800 years, they come down to a society which has less than 1 crore people in this planet. It's all there in the book, I'm only quoting. And these 1 crore people have one single governing council. No countries, no presidential format, no voting, no election, nothing. They have about 4 or 5 people who are in the governing council. And they have in total 4 values on which all are supposed to live. It's also listed in the book. These 4 values are purely based on how I will interact with the other human being. That's all. Once those 4 values are done, your business runs on that, your governance runs on that, everything runs based on that. And those values is something similar to what the Red Indian leader said 500 years back, 400 years back. If I were to ask you, have you currently carved out your business based on values, or values is like a 6th finger in your business, a very late addition? Whether it is there or not doesn't make any sense. Many people actually cut it off, the 6th finger, whoever had it. Normally they have a surgery to remove. It's considered like your index. It's not needed, you remove. That's all. If the values are in place first, because then the values tell you, is this vision right? Is it taking me on the trajectory into the future where I am supposed to lead me, my business, my people, and the future generation of India or the world in the right way? Egregore is when multiple people come together to generate a change which has a ripple effect. Whenever I share this, the final question many of the people, business owners ask me, Prakash, I am going to change, how does it matter? I am going to become the laughing stock. It won't make a difference. But today the world is making note. They are giving award, they are understanding the value. I have worked with several organizations where now I started at least thinking about values, whether they do values or not. At least on paper first they think values. From values they derive the vision. From the vision then you derive multiples of goals. And what this gentleman shared here, the strategy comes after the goals are set. There is also this classical confusion where there are some learned professors who say that strategy should drive goals. But practically speaking, goals is what helps you to come out with strategy. Because strategy is one of the most often repeated, most misunderstood word I have seen in boardroom meetings. No one understands much. Many people confuse with several things about right from ideation to planning to so many things as strategy. Strategy is a huge subject. There is an MBA that London School of Economics has on strategy. Let's not dive into that, but it's a huge subject by itself. If you don't get your strategy right, the next step which follows also is going to be a bit of an issue. Right now we have seen that on the mind-based stuff you have a value. The values lead to a vision or more than one vision in case you are capable of. For example, you are a family, you have 3 children. and each one wants to pursue a different business. Actually, it's good. Never put all eggs in one basket. Yesterday night, I was speaking to a local businessman over dinner, and I was sharing with him in terms of one of the best risk mitigation policies to have at least 5 streams of income other than your current income, assuming you are generating 50-100 crores in your current line of business. Please ensure that in the next 2 to 3 years' time, you have generated at least 4 more businesses in which you can generate 20% of revenue, which means we focus on any business, something called as an NBU. If you haven't started it, every new year start a new business unit with a target of 20% of your next year's projected additional revenue to generate from this NBU. Once that happens, that NBU, you make it a default point that this NBU will only come from a product or service right now I am not in. It can be a niche that you create from an existing product. For example, you are supplying a specific product to automobile sector. The same product you can find to generate 20% revenue to supply to another vertical. Because all businesses falling flat in one single stroke doesn't happen. Even during pandemic, there are many businesses which survive. Fortunately, being in consulting business, what we do is we spread our kitty into 10 boxes at least. Minimum 10 boxes. Which means even if it is 1 box, 2 box, 3 boxes it's failed, other 7 boxes will kick in. Because when somebody is dying and a hospital is surviving, when pandemic is happening, there are companies like courier companies, Big Basket and many service providers who are surviving. Which means if I focus on them, likewise when your product is there, look at 20% of your annual growth, which means if your annual growth is say 40% year on year, take it at least 25% of that to be in an NBU. In 3 to 4 years from now, you would have flanked yourself 4 times. Flanking and marketing means flanking yourself by creating a product the competitor doesn't take your market, you yourself feel what HLL and all these big people do. When you do that, automatically your strategy includes all these things. That's why goal comes first. My strategy is to ensure I have not deep dived into strategy, though I am tempted to. And from there, then you have next what is called as your foolproof action plan. Many businesses I've seen have failed repeatedly because they have an excellent boardroom. They are beautiful at ideation. They can give a wonderful strategy, but they do not give you risk mitigation steps. Risk mitigation steps is your ability to predict a disaster, either prevent it or create a contingency. I put it in very simple terms. Practically, it takes a lot of efforts to really carve this into your business model. If you're making a business blueprint for success, if you do not have a risk mitigation plan for anything that you do, please be rest assured it's better not to start them. I have seen several businesses in Tamil Nadu, in India collapsing because they thought they are sent by God. Nothing wrong will happen. I have said so, it must happen. Even God cannot say that. Right? We have seen several stories. Anyway, I am not going to get into that direction right now. Once that risk mitigation happens, which becomes part of it, that's why it's called foolproof action plan, FPAP. That is to ensure, please bear in mind, even when you make a foolproof action plan, the chances of the business going wrong are high, but the core value of any business is to ensure, the core principle, I have not used the word value. Is your business today being run in a probabilistic way, or is your business being done in a deterministic way? Probabilistic means I spin a coin, I cannot predict whether it's going to be head or tail. Statisticians will say that if you toss it n number of times, 50% will be heads, 50% will be tails. But n is open. If you toss 100 times, doesn't mean 50 will be head, 50 will be tails. It will be maybe 99 head, but it is n. Likewise, when you do your business, is your outcome predictable? If it is not predictable or closer to being predictable, your current business model is probabilistic, and that's where people come in. Because one of the biggest probabilistic impact that your business has to face is the relevance or the your inability to depend on your people. Many of us don't have risk mitigation for our staff. We don't have risk mitigation for our team. Many FBAs, as we call it, family business advisory situation, I've seen very large organizations, including Coimbatore, they don't have a succession plan. I said, come on. You have created such a big empire, you don't have a succession plan. You know who will hit not just your businesses, the second day, the third day, who's going to hit this business? Who's going to be a CxO 5 years from now? Who's going to be a GM? Who's going to be a third, fourth layer? Haven't you spotted the talent and started creating, which means you don't have a risk mitigation plan. When you have it, let me give a short story and then go back to the hard side, connecting a few dots and coming back. Way back in 1990, there was one of the standard NBA finals in US. And there were two, like all these, you would have seen, I don't know how many of you follow basketball of the USA. And then they have one of the standard big teams out there. And they have two coaches who have the complete strategic mapping of how the game is going to be played. It is documented, you can go and search on the web. And it so happened the previous day night, the team which is fancied to win, that strategic document is lost. And apparently it has landed in the hands of the opponent team. And the game is going to start in another 1-2 hours or something like that. So they all have a very hurried discussion. They're mad. The whole thing is lost. They know exactly what mapping you're going to do, how you're going to cut, how you're going to cross, how you're going to throw, who is going to do what. Everything is right here, mapping, man-to-man mapping. And then the coach says the famous thing, please bear in mind, strategy does not win you games. What wins? Execution does. And they actually go ahead to win, but by a close margin. Then it becomes a case study for many organizations to say that how much ever I put on paper in terms of what my strategy is, if I do not know how to execute. And this is today one of the biggest gaps I find in businesses. No business I have come across till now, excepting one or two. I have handled more than 1,500, 2,000 businesses in the last 2 to 3 decades. Personally, other than that, indirect impact like a conference like this are thousands and thousands. They do not have a hands-on execution strategy. A strategy to achieve your goal is different from an execution strategy. Please bear in mind. They're completely two different ball games altogether. They are not the same. Many people don't even understand that. And execution strategy is one thing that I am personally strong. I have developed a framework which is pending even for patenting right now. And this is to ensure that even if your strategy is faulty, it has some cracks, by sheer ability to execute something better, you can improve the deterministic nature of the outcome and keep it less probable. Now I have finished a quotient. All this, if done properly, leads to the last box in the line. We started with values, we went to vision, we went to goals, we went to strategy, we went to foolproof action plan, and then we came to a execution strategy. What should it lead to? Results, output, outcome. The last box becomes more predictable when each of the earlier preceding boxes become more and more and more predictable. All the boxes. You can't miss one step while climbing a ladder and say that I will still reach safely. You don't know. You might fall. And then now comes the entire riverbed, which is what I call the heart of the business. All along what I spoke is the mind of the business. The heart of the business, which today is gaining popularity globally thanks to the Triple P, something that I have covered in the book that I have recently come out with, the Dharma Tales for CEOs. HarperCollins has also put up a stall here. Those who want, you can take an autographed copy at the end of the show. In this book, I talk a lot. Even my earlier book, The Spiritual CEO, is also based on the blend of the heart and the mind. How even from Ramayana, Mahabharata days, how the kings have run the country based on these two founding principles. It is not only the finest of the mind, but the purest of the heart, the intent which matters. And this is what we call is a combination of 4 things. One is the IQ, which is what has brought you into that bucket from values to the results. The other 3 which forms the bed is what we call as the EQ, the SQ and the AQ. The EQ stands for emotional quotient. Study which Peter Salovey and Daniel Goleman made popular in the 80s, which has now become a default standard globally, called emotional intelligence. The 5-step framework that many of you may be familiar with, which is all about understanding the feeling of yourself first, reframing that feeling, motivating yourself from that. Use that base as the way to connect with other people to motivate them through a set of repetitive interpersonal practices. This, in very short, is the essence of the framework of emotional intelligence developed by these people, Peter Salovey and Daniel Goleman, which has gained a lot of currency today. Many organizations are running programs on developing emotional intelligence. At least for the sake of, till you make it real, at least show that there's a famous quotation I share in all my leadership programs. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. You can take it for granted. You be very harsh to someone, pay them salary, they are not going to work for you. But you be very kind, even if you don't pay them enough salary, they'll still work for you. He cares for me. I don't care whether he's a genius or an Albert Einstein, but he cares for me. Something that people remember. When I look at that, EQ takes over. So the first element being EQ, the IQ is what forms the river or the Ganges. The base, the Saraswati, is what is formed by the EQ. The second is what we call the SQ, the spiritual quotient. The spiritual quotient is when you understand that there is a larger purpose behind my birth than other than either being an employee or being an employer. All of you at the end of the day want a family to go back and spend your time with, even if you go to a bar on the way or not. Still you want a family to whom you go back to. I want peace, I want happiness. When I go to sleep, I want to sleep peacefully without the help of any tablets or any assists. I should hit the bed, I should be able to sleep. This is a big challenge for people, specifically who are on the employer side. Because the next day they don't know which contract will backfire, which employee won't turn up, which service will go defunct, they don't know. And that is running in the head. This is because they have not connected to the core of their existence, what we call as the heart or the source within. This is what we expound in Heartfulness meditation. Showing you, if you all have time towards the end, about 10 minutes, I would like to even show you a glimpse of what you can do by looking within. If you all have time, and take the permission of the chair if possible. When you do that, slowly allow the spiritual quotient to build up. Which means I see people for what they are, not for what I want them to be. The big shift. Spirituality always says, take people for what they are. Don't feed them, don't play with them, don't manipulate them, don't work with them to make them do what you want them to do. When you care for them sufficiently, they will do far better than what you actually want them to do. I've seen many great leaders saying that allow your people, they will do far better than you interfering and getting something spoiled. For heaven's sake, don't spoil your people. Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, has this famous quotation I have read in his books. The Founder is a movie that you can see in Netflix. In that book, of course, in that movie he doesn't share, it comes much later. He says, my only job as a CEO in the 40 years of running McDonald's is to find what my people want to achieve and remove the blocks and be a support to them, nothing else. My only job, he says, every day I meet 20 people off my payroll, whoever is on my payroll. I meet 20 of them every day. Sit with them, spend 5 minutes. Ask them what do you want to achieve in life. What do you want to achieve in McDonald's? And find what are the blocks. Remove and be a support. Say that I am there for you. Like the famous Hindi movie, Main Hoon Na. I am there. Don't worry, I'll take care. People come out with results which are mind-boggling, far, far better, because they now know there is a boss who cares for you in a sincere way. That happens because when you start looking inward, the Saraswati starts showing to you. The Ganges being the Lakshmi, the base being the Saraswati, the heart. Both start working together to ensure that the river doesn't go beyond the boundaries and it goes to the destination, all the way feeding the people for whatever they want. The last one, out of the three which is said, the EQ and the SQ, the AQ is what is catching up today, what we call the adaptability quotient. In this VUCA world, AQ is a separate topic. I spent a lot of time on that in my earlier book, The Spiritual CEO. The Kindle version is even now available. It is all about your ability to accept ASAP. Please bear in mind, you cannot change the world. Many people who have done that in the past have gone back to dust. They have become topsoil. They are not here anymore. I want to change the world. I want to do this. Nothing has happened. If I have a situation, the smartest thing is for me to change myself to the situation and see how I can glue in and move on. You can make efforts to predict a bit of the future, which is a very difficult stuff, as Stephen Hawking says. Predicting future is one of the toughest business to be in, unless you are a horoscope fortune teller. You can get whatever you say people normally buy in because it is their belief system which is getting reflected there. If I am able to accept and move on, okay, this is what happens, fine, what next? Highest level of emotional intelligence according to Daniel Goleman is the question, what next? Okay, this has happened, what next? Adaptability quotient, if you look at it, there are insects which are far more superior to us in adapting to situation. Whether you take insects like cockroach, insects like mosquitoes, you build the best of the richest home in the world, which Mukesh Ambani has built. His house is also invested with mosquitoes. They know how to get in, they know how to survive, they know how to multiply. You cannot get away. They can survive even a nuclear attack. You and I cannot. There is another insect called tardigrade which lives 10 kilometers below the seabed, which they apparently took to the moon in the first episode of the moon landing. They put it out there. They took a lot of stuff, life forms there. They wanted to check how these insects and other life forms actually react. They found that tardigrade after 40 years was still alive, without food, without water, without air. And they started researching on it 6 years back to find out how we can learn from it. In fact, one scientist went on record saying, God forbid if tardigrade develops the ability to think as we do, they'll outlive us and take over this world. It could be a potential alien. Go back and search it. There are a lot of articles out there. TARDIGRADE, tardigrade. Why am I saying all this? When all this convergence happens, when your mind is at the finest best, which already maybe is, it only needs a bit of a fine tuning, but we have lost track of the glorious Saraswati, which is our heart-based ability to lead people based on our ability to understand ourselves, understand our feelings, understand the feelings of the people around us, showing and knowing that caring is more important than just manipulating them for my P&L numbers. Then life becomes far more easier when thousands of people take up the ownership of running your organization. It just doesn't end with only you or the 2-3 top people. If you still want to take a short detour of 10 minutes, if you all permit, we can have a sample meditation as well. But my session ends right now. I am open to take question and answers in case you have. I was told talking is about an hour and the rest half an hour goes to sample meditation. So I started at 10:45, 11:45 sharp I am done. The Q&A portion can open in case you want. Sure. It will take about 10 to 15 minutes max. There will be a small relaxation session which one of them will guide you through. There will be a small meditation session which is about focusing the heart and sitting here. They will also tell you what to do. And when someone says that's all, you open your eyes, and after that you can take a Q&A. If you want to continue, we have a very large local team which will help you with that. Coimbatore is one of our oldest meditation centers, more than 30-40 years we are around here. We are present, a lot of trainers are available, and the entire stuff we give to humanity as a CSR, it's free of cost. Or in corporate language, pay it forward. Somebody has paid for it, you don't need to pay. Thank you. Normally you clap at the end, no?